Hello everybody and welcome back to today's video. So today I wanted to talk to you about narcissism and nature versus nurture. Narcissism is a topic of discussion, has a long history of debates to prove both sides of this conversation. Nature versus nurture. When talking about narcissism, many agree with psychology and psychologists with proof that nurture is the cause of this personality disorder we now call narcissism, a topic of which individuals have differing opinions, just as all the rest. I also have a strong opinion on this topic, so let's jump in. I'm sure you all have heard of nature versus nurture, and to define it is kind of along the lines of, how did this disorder come about? Did it come about because of who you are, or the nurturing or the lack thereof after you were born, for instance? So is it an issue of who you are in your innate self and who you become, or is it a nurturing situation to where, like, put in a different predicament in a different environment, you would have ended up completely a different person? Psychology and many others are of the belief that nurture is where the issue lies on this particular topic. Others, many of which dealt with these individuals firsthand, give you mixed reviews. So I want to talk about psychology. So the things that negatively affect their opinion or slants their opinion is that they're compartmentalized, and that's never good. So that means that they will talk about everything psychological, but they will not talk about anything spiritual because they're really not allowed to. They would have to advise you to a spiritual advisor for the spiritual side of things. We are spirit beings living the human experience. If that is true, then we're almost 50% biological matter and anatomy, and then 50% spiritual. So my point is there's a big chunk of this that they refuse to even address. They're given all of their opinions, and all their opinions are basically the Bible on this topic. Now, how do you get off taking half of what's going on, or could possibly be going on, and saying that this is just how it is? We have all the answers and you don't. Or at least that's how people actually take them in most cases. You know, if they say it's this way, man, that's just the way it is, because all these people are so smart and intelligent. But there is a worldwide agenda going on here as well, y'all. Especially if you believe the biblical narrative. Everything is not as though it seems at all. Things are very slanted when you are compartmentalized, and they don't talk on the spiritual side at all. And even if they were forced to address it, they would deny it in most cases. A lot of people don't have the guts to talk about this stuff. So I asked for a little grace here, because this is hard for me to talk on. It's my theory. They don't talk about anything spiritual. And when it comes to the narcissist, they'll address all of these nurture situations as proof. So my rebuttal to that is there also were all these other people that grew up in that same family. The empathic side, the black sheep, the scapegoats, right? So if we grew up in the same family, they're neglecting to talk anything about the victim in a situation. Now, we're not playing the victim because we're not even built that way, y'all. But just to address it for everybody out there, the empath is not playing the victim because we're survivors, warriors, and we just at the time didn't know. We had lack of information, and we just didn't believe that people could be this evil. We would be considered on paper the victims in a situation. They're taking the abuser and giving them a victimhood complex, and that's what the abuser always does. So psychology is feeding right into it. My point is they take these situations that come from the narcissist and say it was a nurturing issue. And the topic is probably coming from the narcissist themselves. But the narcissist lies about everything. I mean, even if they told you evil things that occurred to them, a lot of y'all would believe it out there. But I don't. Because I've been told things like that and found out they were a complete bold-faced lie. Or they were somebody else's story. Now, if you want to be gullible out there and believe the narcissist telling you how bad it is, they will tell you the worst thing in the world that happened to them, and it's not true. They're just evil people. So I would say some of these stories are not legit. And then you're not taking any of the so-called victim or the real true individual that's been sucked off and parasited. We're being predatored by them. They're parasitic to us, but they don't ever ask us what our story is. And my point is we went through, and a lot of y'all went through, way more abuse than a narcissist ever thought of. But we didn't end up a narcissist. So if it's a nurturing issue, then we all should be that way. So these are some of the things that I find falsity in the situation. And I am willing to look at everything objectively. At least I feel like I am pretty open-minded to looking at things, because I do believe people in the church today don't have at least a way of, so before you judge a matter, you need to look into a matter, is what it says in the word. But we were taught in church to don't look into matters, just believe what you're told, because if you look into it, it may make you wayward, take you away from the Lord. But that's not true at all. What it does is it makes the Lord more of a solid individual. I mean, what he's telling you is true. You're going to find the holes all in it if it's a lie. And then you have people that just are herd mentality. They just believe what the textbook says because a bunch of scholars wrote it. But we're run by individuals and entities that rule this world, and they have molded it the way they want it. I would say there's a good percentage of your history, science, technology. I mean, there's a lot of things where there's a good percentage on purpose, not by accident. It's one thing if it's by accident, but it is not by accident. If you looked at just how the education system came about, who provided and funded it, if you look at the Trilateral Commission and all of these things, listen, I've spent like a long time, over two and a half decades on this kind of stuff. And not having children and things like that gave me the opportunity to spend a lot of time on this stuff. So you will find that a lot of things that you would laugh at and mock, they're the truest thing in the world once you get past what you were taught. So they never address they always address the nurture side with this topic, these little stories, but then they never go alongside and ask about the other abused children and what's the answer for them. We grew up in the same family. We might have had more trauma than them. So trauma is a common case, but anything can also be trauma. You know, I've heard psychologists talk licensed psychologists, they will talk about how trauma could be a wet diaper that you were left in for too long. And that created trauma in the baby. I've heard them say this, that caused narcissism. I mean, these types of things. They always say the trauma that occurred may never be what you would think it is in your adulthood. Okay, so that right there is a telltale sign that this is fishy, y'all. Narcissists lie all the time. And the empath has had worse abuse. And that can be debated than the narcissist ever thought of. We all have an understanding of right and wrong, right? That's like, if you believe in creationism, everybody was born when even after the fall of mankind, had to do with the understanding of right and wrong. We have the opportunity to choose, and for us to choose, we have to have the understanding of what right is and wrong is. And when it comes to the narcissist, a lot of times people say, well, they don't know any better, but they do. They're completely sane individuals and act insane at the same time sometimes, but that doesn't mean anything. They are completely sane individuals. When they need to be completely sane and not playing their games, they can be completely sane. When someone of authority comes around, they can be completely sane and act better than you. They know what's going on. They know what right and wrong is. They have the ability to turn it on and turn it off. And that's how you know that they're sane. To fake, to impersonate. If they're faking and impersonating and turning it on and off, then they know what they're doing. Period. They fake, impersonate, some of them have great and glorious careers, degrees, all while functioning fine in society. That's what I wrote. That's my opinion. But then they also choose to do this. They choose to blame shift. They choose blame shifting, manipulating, gaslighting, projecting, lying, cheating, stealing, duping, smearing, controlling, destroying, betraying, raging, ruling over an individual to the point of eggshells, stress, critical, self-righteous, egotistical, robbing, abusing, violating, causing sickness, autoimmune diseases, isolating, degrading, devaluing, discarding, with sadism, black and white thinking, cohesive control, Stockholm syndrome, malignancy, devious, and Machiavellian. They have none of the fruits of the Spirit, but they have all of this. It is not nurture, it's nature. In my humble opinion, it is nature. We are innate spirit beings living the human experience. These became choices out of spiritually weak individuals, and in their innate self were in agreement on one of two cases, or three. They either were lazy and didn't want to put in the hard work for results, or they liked being evil and have aligned with it. The third case would be both 1 and 2 combined. They were deceived, but not because of option 1, 2, or 3. All 3 of those options were agreements. There were decisions, there were agreements, there were conscious decisions made in their sanity with no remorse or regret. They could only be deceived on thinking it was a good idea. Still, that would be an evil decision, and there's no excuse for that type of decision. There were demon entities that got attached to them because of the way that they were acting and operating, and then they ended up opening doors and becoming completely possessed. From there, it led to them giving up on love, kicking out their inner spirit, replacing it in that inner spirit position, the inner voice, a complete demon entity that has complete control over them, while now they're out here running the mask. Their whole spirit now is their ego, and that's it. That's why they have to run around and be with people all the time, because they have no inner voice anymore. They have to be regulated from the outside because their inner voice was their regulator. And they gave it up for this, and they love who they are. And I am from the school of, because you were treated evil or abused is no excuse for you to abuse others. There was a grace period where they made a bad choice. They had a window of opportunity where they could have changed, but they didn't, because God gives opportunities for a time. They continue to align themselves with this entity in agreement because it was worth it to them, period. They always say they hate being mere humanity. They love the power, the control, the takedown. They're addicted. They're prideful and practice how to become better. And that's it. They enjoy this. For an individual to get to a point of no love, no fruit, and no inside voice, no inner spirit that was kicked out and became permanently possessed is not by accident. They like who they are. They say the world is their oyster because maybe for a little bit of time, but this is their only life. And then it's damnation, the ultimate reaping, y'all. So, and they're A-okay with that. Let's talk about the corrupt. Okay, when it comes to corrupt individuals, I think that in a humble way, I want to say, I don't want to, but sometimes you need to check yourself when it comes to the situation of that everybody is born loving and kind. I mean, that's not necessarily true. Not everybody is born loving kind. I don't believe that. I might have used to. But let's talk about corrupt shortly or shortly after birth, right after. I mean, really, after birth, shortly after corrupt, shortly after birth, because this is who they were, who they are, and in their innateness. And this is their destiny. This is who they always have been. Some individuals are born to choose the dark side, period. You got to accept that. Not everyone is loving or wants to love and be loving. People that get possessed and are permanently possessed are not by accident. That's my personal opinion. A huge choice was made, and a lot of fail-safes were jumped out, and limit switches were detoured on purpose by them. So you could tell I used to do mechanical work. But this is true. You have so many fail-safes when you have equipment to make sure it doesn't blow up or burn up or cause a fire. I mean, you have limits all over the place to stop it, to cause it to shut down before it burns up and causes a fire or something. Big pieces of equipment, as well as smaller ones. And I'm telling you, God had, just like we build equipment, we get our ideas from the way God created us. I mean, if you cool a pipe, it's going to shrink. If you heat it up, it's going to expand. That's the same thing with your gut, y'all. I mean, we just take what God created and we make things with it, but it's all based on the way things work on this earth as well, just like we are, biological. So for you to get permanently possessed, you have to give up on a lot of things, and these are decisions, y'all. God just wouldn't, oh, you're permanently possessed, that's it, you're done. No way. This took a long time, and there was a lot of options here for them to turn this around before they actually did this. If anything, they were upset about it, that these fail-safes were even in place, because they're like, man, they were frustrated. It's like, I want this thing taken out. I want to get beyond this. Let's jump it out. I'm so sick of this. Every time I want to get closer to the evil demon spirit. This is what the narcissist is saying. Every time there's another fail-safe that God put in place. I bet that's probably how they were thinking. But they had to jump out all of these limit switches, man. It's like God put them in place so that they could never be permanently possessed. But then they went ahead, they got with the demon and said, I got the wire cutters and I got some jumper cables. So, we're going to jump it out. I'll show you how. Okay, let's do it. I mean, really, they were probably upset because there was fail-safes in there, protecting them, protecting their spirit. God's human fail-safes, they were all in place. They just got frustrated they were even there. These individuals, narcissists and cluster B types. Anything that changes anatomically, in my humble opinion, was done after the decision was made to permanently possess. Meaning, like, if their MRI or PET scan changed and they were shut down on the love sector on the right frontal lobes and stuff like that, this was done first. And then, because of the decisions they made in the spirit realm, it caused the anatomical thing to occur. Because why? Because they consented, y'all. I always talk about that. It's your consent. It's your covenants and consents. Okay, so give me some grace here, but I have a personal thought. That's a theory. I believe it's very possible that how we enter this world and the things we are inflicted with throughout our life are either because of what we did before here or after we got here. And also some of the things we see, because we don't know what it looks like. Could be that, but it could be imitation. Whatever is outside of our life, but things you see around you. I believe that's very possible. Now, this is not meant for simple people. Probably this channel is not meant for simple people, because I kind of get deep on some of this stuff. And, the Bible does talk about getting to the meat of the word. Well, to dissect some of this stuff, even though this is my theory, it does fit the biblical narrative. I mean, it would fit in the biblical narrative of God's laws as being definitely a possibility. I could see this being the case for God being fair, because I know he is fair. And for some of the things that we see on the earth, sometimes, you would question it. Like, how would that be fair? And then you have these, pastors that are probably Satan's pastors or something. They're going to tell you some stupid cliche paragraph. Well, God did it so that you can work hard at understanding them. So some of this, like suffrage and stuff, I don't know. I don't have all the answers, but what I am saying is if what I just said in this last sentence is true, then all of this would make sense and it would all fit in the biblical narrative. For God to be fair, all of this would make also faith real and accessible. I mean, it would make it just make complete sense to us. And it would make these things make sense to just our thoughts, our lower thoughts, in humanity, because his ways are higher than ours. I understand that. But a lot of times all of the answers are in the Word of God and the laws of the Word of God. But this is the real meat of the Word. Some of the stuff I'm going to talk on, so it's not made for simple ones. It's not made for people that want to, have to drink the milk. But these thoughts I have are not for simple people. This would fit the biblical laws of God, and it would cause everything in God's word to be solid. Still the same. And I believe that it's possible that I am on some sort of a right track here. But like I said, this is a theory of mine, and I've spent some time on this. This would put all the pieces together for me. And a lot of people may take this as offensive, but should not, because this is a theory that I have. But there is so much distracting us from the real, unadulterated truth of the gospel. Really, y'all. You can't tell me we are not night and day different in our confusion since what Adam knew after his fall from grace. So when Adam was here, whatever he was thinking and knew was the truth, and he knew it because he was right out of the garden. I mean, everything hadn't been completely corrupted to the level thousands of years later with these stupid books that we have and all this technology that tells us this is the way it is, period, this is a fact, when in fact it's not in some cases. That he would probably set us straight in so many different ways because of the truth and that he had before it was all massaged all the way down to us, so to speak. You can't tell me he looked at most things the way we probably do. And what a lot of people cannot fathom, they get offended of, they get upset with you about, and this is people that are in the Matrix. This is what the Matrix will do. All the stuff that you were taught and all the pledging and all this crazy stuff that you're doing out there. Well, that most things, almost everything you were taught in school and in church in a lot of cases was a misinterpretation or it was false. Most can't accept that almost everything you were taught in school and church was to some degree a lie. What I'm saying is in church, they teach you a lot of things that aren't true as well. And I'm not against church, but I'm just saying, like, in the Gospel of John, it talks about that we shouldn't have hired pastors. That a hired pastor, when the wolves come, they run away because they don't care about you. But you know what Christ is? He met in small groups and then he evangelized. And if you see a small group these days, people laugh at it. They do. But I'm just saying, this is just one concept and thing that has been put forth in the church. It's a complete, in my opinion, a lie. There's a lot of things that are a lie. I mean, I'm not saying like you can't get a message there. But what I am saying is there's deceptions in it, a lot of deceptions in it. Like if you ever looked at all these different versions of the gospel, of the Word of God, there are so many fallacies in it now. You shouldn't be changing, you shouldn't be making versions of the gospel. I mean, who do we think we are? You have a perfect book that was given to you by God, and now you're going to make it better. There you go. I mean, look at it like that. I'm just telling you, I am here to tell the truth to you, and even if it hurts. So I'm asking for some grace here because I know a lot of y'all people can jump to conclusions. And I think that a lot of those individuals aren't on my channel anymore. But, yeah, I get a lot of wild stuff like accusations and all kinds of stuff thrown at me. But I know the Lord and I love the Lord. And I've been passionate my whole life about telling the truth, walking the truth. Because I had been around a lot of lie. You know, when you've been around it and you are not equally yoked with it, you hate it. You hate it. So that's all. And I can go into the situation that I said when I said that, the things that we did before here. Because I know Bible believers be like, we were never somewhere else. Yes, but we could have been in a controlled environment and all tested in a controlled environment before we were placed here. And I've done a big spread on that. Because God knew us before we were here. We could have been tested in a controlled environment. I'm not saying that we lived a whole life somewhere, but if we all were given the same tools and we all lived in the same area, we were all tested in the same area with the same tools, with the same type of innateness, with no corruption involved. How did you do and how did I do? How did we all do in there? Well, maybe some people were robbing and stealing in a controlled environment from the jump. Some people were middle of the road. Some people were glorious with God. So maybe God planted them in different families all over the earth, in different places of the world, you know, creeds, and under different religions, because this is what they, and under different socioeconomic situations, because maybe that's what we all was fair for us because of how we acted and operated in a controlled environment before God put us here. Do you ever think of that? That's not outside the biblical narrative at all. You don't think we're just randomly put into these certain families. We were placed all over the earth in these different countries, just plotted down. God's fair. We were strategically placed wherever we were placed on this earth at the time, in the era of this earth system. And you are not a mistake. Nobody's a mistake, and nobody was placed in the time and the place and in the geographics by mistake. So I'm gonna leave you with that. Till next time, soldier. Peace out. Love y'all.